So we're going to talk about soil biology. So that biology, in order for it to function, needs to live in a well-structured physical environment and additionally have nutritional supply. We need essential nutrients, not just for plants. The bacteria, the fungi, all of the predators, etc., all of that life, they also need nutrients. But when we do open up and peer into this black box of soil biology, there's no doubt about it, it is a vast and complex world that we are truly just only beginning to scratch that surface on. And that is what makes it very exciting, and that is what opens up a lot of opportunity for thinking about farming systems and the redesign of our farming systems, the most biodiverse ecosystem on the planet. With that diversity, of course, comes a huge plethora of multifunctionality, all sorts of functions in which those organisms can provide. And of course, that ranges from the micro, the bacteria, the fungi, and that's really a huge amount of that diversity exists. But it extends up through into some of those larger insects and of course our friends the earthworms as well. They do help to improve the soil structure. So as they grow, they release gluey substances. That helps to stick those particles together, improving that porosity, thereby increasing root depth. And of course that root depth is really important for resilience, drought proofing, helping those plants acquire nutrition from the deeper profiles of the soil. And as they grow and die and do all the things that they do, they produce a whole lot of byproducts, all sorts of compounds that they excrete into the environment. And this, again, very diverse array of compounds can, again, provide many, many different functions, from stimulating plant growth, protecting that plant from disease, as well as helping to form soil organic matter. Like all living things, they are not invincible. And some of our practices can have suppressive effects on them. Of course, excess disturbance, so when we cultivate, when we till that soil. Same with fertilizers, excess fertilizers. Now I emphasize that point. Look, biology needs fertility too. They need nutrition too. They need macro and micro minerals. But it is the excess applications of some of our quite salty and acidifying fertilizers that can have suppressive effects. Of course, pesticides, fungicides designed to kill pathogenic fungi, but there's going to be some off-target effects on some of the beneficials as well. Now, despite this vast complexity of this biological world, it doesn't necessarily mean that managing them is also so complex. Same for us, and it's the same for them. One, they just need to be looked after. We've got to take care of their home, look after them, nurture them, do no harm. Okay, so let's try and minimize the damage, and that's that discussion around soil health principles, minimizing disturbance. Okay, minimize physical disturbances, minimize some of those chemical disturbances. We need to feed them. All living things need to be fed. Okay, so then there we could have conversations around the role of plants in feeding the biology, and indeed the role of plants are arguably the more important piece of this puzzle. By growing plants in the soil, they photosynthesize, they pump carbon into the soil, and that helps to feed the soil biology. So certainly the preferred food source of the biology is the plant foods. So, step 1 and step 2 here, taking care of their environment and feeding them. These are fundamental that everybody, every farmer has to do. Here we have a study looking at the effects of nitrogen fertilizer on nitrogen fixation. It's a long-term study over a 35-year period. They found that where we have enriched the soil with nitrogen, that this negatively impacts nitrogen fixation by 50-odd%. So we see a big drop in nitrogen fixation where we enrich the soil with nitrogen. Now, of course, nitrogen fixation is a process that we could unlock nitrogen from the air for free. We talk about being sustainable, using less inputs, causing less damage to the environment in terms of nutrient leakage. Here we have a process where we could get free nitrogen. Plants are very special. They have this superpower of photosynthesis, of being able to photosynthesize, breathing in that carbon out of the air, fixing that into chemical energy, into sugar, into glucose, to grow roots and root mass, and some of that carbon gets excreted out of those roots. Carbohydrates, amino acids, organic acids, lipids, all sorts of carbon-based compounds that are leaking out of that root system and feeding that soil biology. What is the impacts of a diverse array of root systems? Deep tap rooting, more branching, fibrous root systems, shallow, deep, you name it. We have a range of different root systems there on the right-hand side. So with that diversity comes a diversity of foodstuffs coming in to feed a greater diversity of the biology. Summarizing 106 different studies, and the key finding here, we show that microbial biomass, bacterial biomass, fungal biomass, the fungal to bacterial ratio, and overall microbial activity through an indicator, which is their microbial respiration, that all of these things increase with increasing plant species diversity. And this study is true, this finding is true across native forests, planted forests, croplands, all the way even through to planted containers. We have a study here comparing 1, 2, 8, and 16 plant species, and under those higher diverse 16 species plots, we see that the mycorrhizal fungi are producing 30 to 150% more spores, so reproducing a whole lot more, and 40 to 70% greater spore volume. Okay, it's hard to crop 10 different plant species. We can do that through pastures or through cover crops, but cropping and combining 10-way mixtures becomes a little more complicated. But nonetheless, even just the jump from 1 to 2 just also creates a lot of positive and beneficial interactions down there in that soil, whereby that little bit of extra diversity is encouraging and stimulating more of that soil biological activity, where 1 + 1 can equal 3. What the combination of plants can do and achieve is greater than the sum of their individual parts. And a really good example of that would be then things like quorum sensing. Again, microorganisms behave differently when they get to a certain density. So here we're talking about group behaviors versus individual behaviors. We can also feed biology and encourage that biology to unlock nutrients from the soil and store those nutrients in their bodies. And when we store nutrients in the bodies of the organisms, those nutrients are much more stable in the soil. They're going to remain in the soil root zone. It's the fertilizers, the inorganic fertilizers, the highly soluble fertilizers that are a double-edged sword. They're highly soluble, highly available for uptake, but also highly available for losses, for leaching, for lockups, etc. So when we feed the plant inorganic nutrients like nitrate, like ammonium over there on the left-hand side, the plant is going to expend energy, it will use photosynthetic energy, it will drain photosynthetic carbon to convert that nitrate or that ammonium onwards down this metabolic pathway. So it's an obvious question, so well, what if we just fed the plants these organic forms of nutrients like amino acids, etc.? What if we just delivered these directly to the plant? Well, the plant can make immediate use of them, and it can save energy on this whole process of converting inorganic forms. We don't have to worry about all that stuff over there on the left. We can conserve that energy and deliver these organic forms straight into the plant. That energy can be used for other growth processes, more tillers, deeper roots, filling more grain, sizing up fruit. So this is the point about achieving more with less. And that's what biology can do. That is the biological approach and the efficiency gains that come through a biologically focused approach. It's about achieving more with less. Thank you very much.